There's a man in this city who carries two faces. One that sits at dinner tables with his kids, helping with homework, teaching his son how to throw a curveball. The other? That face moves through shadows, makes calls that end careers, and signs checks that silence problems permanently. He's not just some mobster flexing power for ego. He's a father. And every dirty move he makes, every blood-stained choice, every forbidden secret he buries deep, it's all to keep his family breathing. Now here's where it gets wild. The daughter of the most powerful judge in California just stumbled onto something she was never supposed to see. Not a rumor. Not some street gossip. A forbidden secret so radioactive that if it gets out, his entire family dies. But here's the kicker. If she speaks up, her world burns too. This isn't about good versus evil. This is about two people trapped in a nightmare where silence is survival, and the truth? The truth is a loaded gun pointed at everyone they love. Some secrets don't just destroy lives, they erase bloodlines. And if you're still here, it means this kind of story hits you different. So do me a solid, hit that subscribe button and drop a like right now. Not for the algorithm, but because in a city like this, you blink once and you miss the move that changes everything. I'm telling you, the deeper we go, the darker it gets, and you're gonna want to stay close. His name is Vincent Castellano, but on the streets of San Francisco, people don't say his name out loud. They call him the architect. Not because he builds things, but because he designs outcomes. He restructures problems. Makes inconvenient situations disappear like morning fog rolling off the bay. Vincent isn't your typical mob boss screaming orders in some back alley chop shop. Nah. He's the guy who shows up to his daughter's volleyball games, cheering louder than any other parent. He's the dude who takes his son fishing off the Santa Cruz Pier every Sunday, teaching him patience, teaching him loyalty. To the world, he's just another successful businessman with a nice house in Pacific Heights, driving a blacked-out Range Rover, always dressed clean, always smiling. But underneath that smile, there's a network so deep, so carefully woven, that half the city's power structure owes him favors they'll never admit. Vincent operates in a space most people don't even know exists. He doesn't deal drugs on street corners. He doesn't run guns through the docks like some low-level hustler. Vincent controls information. He owns silence. When a tech billionaire in Silicon Valley needs a lawsuit to vanish, Vincent makes a call. When a politician's dirty laundry threatens to surface before an election, Vincent sends someone to handle it. His power isn't loud. It's surgical. It's the kind of influence that doesn't make headlines because headlines would mean failure. And Vincent Castellano doesn't fail. Not when his family's safety depends on it. See, Vincent learned early that in this world you're either protected or you're prey. He grew up in the Tenderloin, watching his own father get swallowed by the streets, watching his mother work 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. He swore his kids would never know that struggle, never feel that fear. So he built an empire in the shadows, brick by brick, deal by deal, until he became untouchable. Or so he thought. Now let's flip the coin. Across town there's a woman named Sofia Reyes. 28 years old, Stanford law grad, sharp as a blade and colder than the Pacific in February. She's the daughter of Judge Eduardo Reyes, the most respected, most feared judge in the Northern District of California. Judge Reyes has sent more mobsters to prison than anyone in state history. He's a legend in legal circles, a hero to prosecutors, a nightmare to defense attorneys. His daughter? She grew up watching her father destroy criminal empires from the bench. She sat in courtrooms as a kid, watching him hand down life sentences without flinching. That courtroom was her church. Justice was her religion. And her father? He was the high priest. But Sofia always felt something off. Growing up in that world, you learn to read between the lines. You notice when your father comes home late, when he takes calls in the garage with the door closed, when certain names make his jaw tighten. She learned not to ask questions. Learned that some things stay buried for a reason. After law school, she took a job at a non-profit legal clinic in the Mission District, working with immigrants, with kids caught up in gang violence, with families crushed by a system that chews people up. She wanted to be different than her father. She wanted justice to feel human again. That's when the universe decided to play a cruel joke. 3 weeks ago, Sofia was assigned to help a woman named Maria Santos. Maria's husband had been killed in what cops called a gang-related incident. But Maria swore it wasn't gang violence. She swore her husband was murdered because he saw something he shouldn't have. She kept saying the same thing over and over. They made it look like the streets, but it wasn't the streets. It was them. The ones in suits. Sofia thought the woman was just traumatized, spinning conspiracy theories to make sense of senseless violence. But Maria kept pushing. She handed Sophia a small envelope, her hands shaking like leaves in the wind. Inside, a single photograph. Blurry, taken from a distance, but clear enough. Two men shaking hands outside a restaurant in North Beach. One of them? Vincent Castellano. The other? Her father. Judge Eduardo Reyes. Sophia felt her stomach drop. She told herself it was nothing. Maybe they ran into each other. Maybe it was coincidental. But Maria's next words made her blood run cold. Your father meets him every month. Same place. Same time. I have proof. Sophia wanted to walk away right there. Burn the photo. Forget Maria Santos ever existed. But something inside her wouldn't let it go. That nagging voice, the one that had whispered doubts her entire life, suddenly started screaming. So she did what any lawyer would do. She started digging. Quietly. Carefully. She pulled old case files, cross-referenced dates, tracked her father's schedule against court records. And that's when the pattern emerged. Every major case involving organized crime that landed on her father's desk, they all ended the same way. Either dismissed on technicalities, or the defendants walked with suspiciously light sentences. Meanwhile, low-level street hustlers got hammered with maximum time. It was like watching someone conduct an orchestra, making sure the right notes hit at the right time. Sophia's hands started shaking when she realized what she was looking at. Her father, the man who built his career on destroying the mob, was protecting them. No, worse. He was working with them. And Vincent Castellano? He wasn't just some mobster. He was the key. The architect wasn't just designing outcomes for clients. He was designing them with her father's help. They were partners. And whatever they were hiding, whatever deal they'd made, it was buried so deep that uncovering it could collapse everything. The courts, the city, her family, his family, everyone. But Sophia couldn't stop. Once you see the crack in the foundation, you can't unsee it. She started following the thread. Late nights in the law library, searching through archived records looking for connections. She found shell companies, offshore accounts, properties purchased under fake names. She found a web so tangled, so expertly hidden, that it must have taken years to build. And at the center of it all? A single word kept appearing in documents and emails in coded language: sanctuary. She had no idea what it meant. But every instinct told her this was the forbidden secret. The thing Maria's husband died for seeing. The thing that kept Vincent Castellano untouchable and her father unquestioned. Sanctuary wasn't just a word. It was a system. A machine. And it was still running. Then came the night everything shifted. Sophia was walking back to her car after a late session at the clinic. The mission was quiet, streetlights casting long shadows, the smell of Ticarius mixing with fog. She felt it before she saw it. That pressure on the back of your neck when you know you're being watched. She turned. Nothing. Just empty sidewalk. But when she reached her car, there was something on the windshield. Not a ticket. A note. Handwritten. Simple. Terrifying. Stop looking. Or your father dies first. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She looked around, scanning faces, windows, alleys. Whoever left it was gone. But the message was clear. They knew. Vincent's people knew she was digging. And now she had a choice. Walk away and pretend she never saw anything, or keep going and risk everything. But here's the thing about people like Sophia. Once they start seeking truth, they can't stop. Even when the truth is a bomb. Sophia didn't sleep that night. She sat in her apartment in No Valley, lights off, curtains drawn, staring at that note like it might suddenly explain itself. The handwriting was clean, almost elegant. Whoever wrote it wasn't some low-level thug trying to intimidate her with broken English and misspelled threats. This was calculated. Professional. The kind of warning that comes from people who've done this before. People who know exactly how much pressure to apply before something breaks. She thought about calling her father. Confronting him. Demanding answers. But what would she even say? Hey Dad, I know you're working with the mob, wanna explain? That conversation would either end with him lying to her face or confirming her worst nightmare. Either way, she'd lose him. And despite everything, despite the anger boiling in her chest, she wasn't ready to lose her father. Not yet. Not until she understood why. Because that's the thing people don't get about corruption. It's never just black and white. Nobody wakes up and decides to become the villain. There's always a reason. Always a moment where the line got blurred, where protection became compromise, where survival meant sacrificing principles. Vincent Castellano was having his own sleepless night across the city. He sat in his home office in Pacific Heights, a glass of Macallan 18 in his hand, staring at the security footage his guy had sent him. Clear as day. Sophia Reyes, parked outside the restaurant in North Beach where he meets the judge. She sat there for 20 minutes, watching, taking photos with her phone. His head of security, a brick of a man named Tommy Chin, had already put eyes on her. Already delivered the warning. But Vincent knew that wouldn't be enough. People like Sophia, people raised on justice and righteousness, they don't scare easy. They dig harder. They convince themselves they're doing the right thing even when it gets them killed. Vincent rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of 20 years pressing down on him. 20 years of building sanctuary. 20 years of keeping it airtight. And now some idealistic lawyer with daddy issues was about to rip the whole thing open because she couldn't leave well enough alone. He thought about his own daughter, Gianna, asleep upstairs. 16 years old, dreaming about college applications and homecoming dresses, completely unaware that her father's empire was built on compromises most people couldn't stomach. If Sophia exposed sanctuary, if she went public with what she was finding, Gianna would wake up in a world where her last name meant prison visits and shame. Where her father wasn't a businessman but a criminal. Where everything she knew was a lie. Vincent made a decision right there. He picked up his phone and sent a text to Judge Reyes. "We need to meet. Now, your daughter's a problem." 30 minutes later, they were sitting in Vincent's car, parked at Crissy Field, the Golden Gate Bridge lit up in the distance like a postcard. Judge Eduardo Reyes looked older than Vincent remembered. The man who used to command courtrooms with his voice now looked tired, worn down, like he'd been carrying a mountain on his back for too long. "How much does she know?" Eduardo's voice was barely above a whisper. Vincent didn't sugarcoat it. "Enough to be dangerous. She's got photos. She's pulling records. She talked to Maria Santos." Eduardo's face went pale. "Santos? Jesus Christ, Vincent. I told you that situation needed to be handled cleaner." "It was clean," Vincent shot back. "Her husband saw one meeting. One. We made it look like gang violence. Nobody was supposed to connect it. But your daughter's smart. She's connecting dots that shouldn't even exist." Eduardo stared out at the bay, watching waves crash against the rocks. "So what do you want me to do? Kill my own daughter? Is that where we are now?" Vincent's jaw tightened. "Don't put that on me. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we need to control her. Redirect her. Make her think she's chasing ghosts." "She won't stop," Eduardo said, his voice cracking. "I know my daughter. Once she smells blood, she doesn't let go. She's more like me than she realizes." "Then make her understand," Vincent said, his tone harder now. "Tell her the truth. Tell her why sanctuary exists. Tell her what happens if it falls apart." Eduardo turned to look at Vincent, eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. "If I tell her the truth, she'll hate me. She'll never look at me the same way." Vincent leaned back, letting out a long breath. "Then you better decide what matters more. Her respect or her life. Because right now, she's walking toward a cliff and she doesn't even know it." The next morning, Sophia got a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. The voice on the other end was calm, measured, with a slight accent she couldn't place. "Miss Reyes. My name is Vincent Castellano. I believe we need to talk." Her blood went ice cold. "How did you get this number?" "I get every number I need," Vincent replied smoothly. "Listen, I know what you're looking into. I know what you think you've found. And I'm calling to tell you something important. You're not wrong. But you're not right either. Meet me. One conversation. After that, if you still want to burn everything down, that's your choice. But you owe it to yourself to hear the whole story before you light the match." Every instinct screamed at Sophia to hang up. To call the cops. To run. But there was something in his voice. Not a threat. Not manipulation. It was almost resignation. Like a man who was tired of running from the truth. "Where?" she heard herself say. "Golden Gate Park. The Japanese tea garden. Tomorrow at noon. Come alone. No wires. No backup. Just you and me." Two people having a conversation that should have happened a long time ago. He hung up before she could respond. Sophia sat there, phone still pressed to her ear, heart hammering. This was insane. Meeting a mob boss in a public park? It was the kind of thing that got people disappeared. But she also knew this was her only shot. Whatever sanctuary was, whatever her father and Vincent had built, the only way to understand it was to walk straight into the fire. The next day, Sophia showed up early. She wore jeans and a hoodie, trying to blend in with tourists and locals. The tea garden was peaceful, cherry blossoms drifting in the breeze, koi fish gliding through ponds. It felt surreal, like the world outside this garden didn't exist. Vincent arrived exactly at noon, dressed casually in a black jacket and dark jeans. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like somebody's dad. And that made it worse somehow. They walked in silence for a moment before Vincent spoke. You look like your father. Same eyes. Same stubborn jaw. Don't, Sophia said sharply. Don't try to humanize this. You're a criminal. My father's supposed to put people like you away. Vincent nodded slowly. You're right. I am a criminal. And your father should have put me away years ago. But he didn't. You want to know why? Sophia stopped walking, turning to face him. Enlighten me. Vincent's expression darkened. Because 15 years ago your father made a choice. A choice that saved hundreds of lives. Including yours. Sophia's stomach dropped. What are you talking about? Vincent gestured to a bench overlooking the garden. Sit. This is gonna take a minute. They sat and Vincent began. 15 years ago, San Francisco was a war zone. You were too young to remember, but the cartels were moving in hard. Sinaloa. Jalisco. They wanted the port. They wanted the distribution routes. And they were willing to slaughter anyone who got in their way. Cops. Judges. Families. Kids. Nobody was off limits. Your father had just been appointed to the federal bench. He was the new guy, the reformer, the one who was going to clean up the courts and bring justice. And the cartels? They put a hit on him. Not just him. Your mother. Everyone. Sophia felt her chest tighten. You're lying. Vincent pulled out his phone, scrolled through photos and handed it to her. It was an old surveillance photo. Her father, younger, standing outside their old house in Presidio Heights. And in the corner of the frame, barely visible, a man with a rifle scope. That's Miguel Cordero, Vincent said quietly. Sinaloa's best hitter. He was 3 seconds away from putting a bullet through your father's skull while you played in the backyard. Sophia's hands started trembling. What happened? Vincent said. I had my own war with the cartels. They were muscling into my territory, killing my people. So when I found out they were coming for a federal judge, I made a call. I stopped Cordero. Permanently. And then I went to your father with a proposal. I said, you can keep fighting this war alone and watch your family die. Or you can work with me and we build something that keeps the real animals out. That's what sanctuary is. It's not corruption. It's controlled chaos. I keep the streets clean. I keep the cartels out. And your father makes sure the system doesn't collapse in the process. Sophia felt like the ground was falling away beneath her. So you're saying my father became a criminal to protect me? Vincent met her eyes. I'm saying your father became a survivor. And every choice he's made since then, every case he's buried, every deal he's brokered, it's been to keep you breathing. You think that's evil? Maybe. But before you judge him, ask yourself this. What would you do if someone put a gun to your family's head? The question hung in the air like smoke. Sophia wanted to scream. Wanted to cry. Wanted to deny everything. But deep down in that place where truth lives, she already knew the answer. If you had to protect your family, you already know how far you'd go. You'd cross lines you swore you'd never cross. You'd make deals with devils you swore you'd never shake hands with. You'd bury truths so deep that even you forget where you put them. Drop a dot in the comments, because the next part doesn't forgive anyone. Not Vincent. Not the judge. Not Sophia. And maybe not even you for understanding why they did it. Stay until the end. Some truths don't just burn, they take people with them. And what Sophia's about to discover is the kind of fire that consumes everything in its path. Sophia sat on that bench for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. The world around her kept moving. Tourists snapping photos, kids chasing each other through the gardens, birds singing like nothing had just shattered, but she felt frozen. Trapped between two versions of reality. In one version, her father was a hero. A man of principle who dedicated his life to justice. In the other, he was a collaborator. A man who'd chosen survival over integrity. And the worst part? She understood why. Vincent watched her process it, saying nothing. He'd seen this look before. The moment when someone's belief system cracks wide open and they have to decide what to do with the pieces. Some people glue it back together and pretend nothing happened. Others let it shatter completely and become something new. He couldn't tell yet which type Sophia was. Finally she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. So all those cases, all those criminals who walked, that was you too protecting sanctuary? Vincent nodded. Not all of them. But the ones that mattered? Yeah. See, sanctuary isn't about letting bad guys go free. It's about controlling who has power. The cartels wanted to turn San Francisco into Tijuana. Bodies in the streets. Kidnappings. Extortion. We stopped that. But stopping it meant making compromises. It meant letting some smaller operations run so we could keep the big wolves out. Your father and I, we became gatekeepers. We decided who got through and who got buried. That's not justice, Sophia said, anger creeping into her voice. That's playing God. You're damn right it is, Vincent shot back. And you know what? It worked. This city's been peaceful for 15 years. You got to grow up safe. Go to Stanford. Build a career helping people. All because your father and I played God. So yeah, judge us. But remember, you only get to stand on that moral high ground because we built it for you. Sophia stood abruptly, pacing. There has to be another way. There has to be. There isn't, Vincent interrupted, his voice hard now. You think we didn't try? You think we wanted this? Your father spent the first 5 years trying to find a way out. Trying to work within the system. But the system's broken, Sophia. It's been broken for a long time. The only thing keeping this city from eating itself alive is us. Me and your father. That's the truth you stumbled onto. That's the forbidden secret Maria Santos' husband died for. Sophia froze. What did he see? Vincent's jaw tightened. He was a delivery driver. Wrong place, wrong time. He saw your father and me meeting with someone we shouldn't have been meeting with. A deputy mayor who's part of the network. Santos didn't understand what he was looking at, but he started asking questions. Started poking around. We tried to pay him off. Tried to relocate him. But he went to the press. So yeah, we handled it. And before you ask, no, I didn't pull the trigger. But I gave the order. That blood's on my hands. Sophia felt bile rising in her throat. You murdered an innocent man. I protected hundreds of others, Vincent said coldly. You want to hate me for that? Fine. Hate me. But understand something. In this game there are no innocent people. Only people who know and people who don't. And the ones who don't? They're the most dangerous because they act without understanding the consequences. So what happens now? Sophia asked, her voice shaking. You kill me too? Tie up another loose end. Vincent stood, facing her fully. If I wanted you dead, you'd already be gone. I'm here because your father begged me not to touch you. Because despite everything, he loves you more than he loves his own life. So I'm giving you a choice. Walk away. Go back to your clinic. Help your immigrants and your gang kids. Live your life. Or keep digging and watch everything collapse. Your father goes to prison. My family gets targeted. The cartels move back in. And this city bleeds. All because you couldn't accept that sometimes the heroes you need are the ones wearing masks. Sophia felt tears stinging her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. How do I know you're telling the truth? How do I know this isn't just manipulation? Vincent reached into his jacket. Sophia tensed, but he only pulled out a flash drive. Everything's on here. Financials, communications, names, dates, the full structure of Sanctuary. If you want to burn it all down, this is the match. But before you do, talk to your father. Let him tell you his side. Because once you light this fire, there's no putting it out. He placed the flash drive on the bench between them and started walking away. Then he paused, turning back. One more thing. You asked how you know I'm telling the truth? Look up Operation Fallen Angels. DA investigation from 15 years ago. They were closing in on the cartels, had everything they needed to take them down. Then the case disappeared overnight. Record sealed. Witnesses vanished. You want to know why? Because if that case had gone forward, it would have exposed that federal agents were on the cartel payroll. It would have collapsed trust in law enforcement nationwide. Your father and I? We killed that case. We buried it to save the system. So yeah, we're criminals. But we're criminals who kept this country from tearing itself apart. Vincent walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Sophia grabbed the flash drive with shaking hands and ran. She didn't stop running until she reached her car, didn't stop driving until she pulled up outside her father's house in Sea Cliff. She sat there for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. Finally she got out and walked to the door. Before she could knock, it opened. Her father stood there, and the look on his face told her everything. He already knew. Vincent had called him. Sophia, Eduardo said softly, his voice breaking. Baby girl, please come inside. They sat in his study, the same room where she used to do homework as a kid while he reviewed case files. It felt like a lifetime ago. Is it true? She asked. All of it. Eduardo nodded slowly, tears streaming down his face. Every word. I wanted to tell you so many times. Wanted to explain. But how do you tell your daughter that the man she looked up to, the man she thought stood for justice, is actually a survivor? Sophia finished. That's what Vincent called you. A survivor. Eduardo looked surprised. He said that. He said you made a choice to save us. To save me. Eduardo broke then, really broke, sobbing into his hands like a child. They were going to kill you, Sofia. You were 13 years old and they were going to put a bullet in your head just to hurt me. Just to send a message. I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't lose you. So I made a deal with the devil and I've been paying for it every day since. Sofia moved to her father, kneeling beside his chair. Why didn't you go to the FBI? To someone who could help? Because the FBI was compromised, Eduardo said, looking at her with red, swollen eyes. The police were compromised. Half the city government was on somebody's payroll. There was no one to trust except Vincent because at least with him, I knew where I stood. He needed legitimacy. I needed protection. So we built Sanctuary. And yeah, innocent people got hurt. People like Santos. But thousands of others stayed alive. Does that make it right? No. But it made it necessary. Sofia felt her own tears finally breaking through. What do I do, Dad? I have evidence. I have everything on this drive. I could end this right now. Eduardo took her hands in his. Then end it. If that's what you need to do, I won't stop you. I've been waiting for this day for 15 years. Waiting for the moment when it all came crashing down. Maybe it's time. Maybe I've played God long enough. But what happens to you? Sofia whispered. What happens to Vincent's family? What happens to this city? The truth happens, Eduardo said. And we deal with the consequences. Sofia looked at the flash drive in her hand, then at her father's face. The face that had tucked her in at night, that had cheered at her graduation, that had sacrificed everything for her. And in that moment she realized something that made her stomach turn. She understood. Not just intellectually but in her bones. She understood why her father did it. Why Vincent did it. Because if she were in their position, if someone threatened her family, she'd do the same thing. She'd cross the same lines. Make the same deals. Bury the same bodies. The forbidden secret wasn't just what they'd done. It was that anyone else would have done it too. Vincent was right. There are no innocent people. Only people who haven't been tested yet. Sofia didn't sleep that night either. She sat in her apartment, the flash drive sitting on her coffee table like a live grenade. She plugged it in once just to see if Vincent was bluffing. He wasn't. Everything was there. Bank transfers routing through shell corporations in the Caymans. Encrypted emails between her father and Vincent discussing shipments and territorial agreements. Names of cops on the payroll. Judges. City council members. Even a deputy chief in the SFPD. The network was bigger than she'd imagined. It wasn't just her father and Vincent playing vigilante. It was an entire shadow government running beneath the official one, making sure the gears kept turning, making sure the monsters stayed outside the gates. But what shook her most were the files labeled prevented incidents. Spreadsheets documenting cartel hits that never happened. Kidnappings that got stopped before they started. A planned bombing at a tech conference in 2019 that would have killed 300 people. Shut down because Vincent's network caught wind of it and eliminated the cell before they could move. There were dozens of these. Maybe hundreds. Events that never made the news because they never happened. Lives saved that would never know they'd been in danger. How do you measure that? How do you weigh the life of one innocent delivery driver against 300 conference attendees? Against the thousands of people who would have died if the cartels had taken control of the city? The math was brutal. Cold. Inhuman. But it was also undeniable. Sofia opened her laptop and started drafting an email to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for 20 minutes. Then she deleted it. Started over. Deleted it again. She thought about Maria Santos, crying in her office, begging for justice for her murdered husband. That woman deserved answers. Deserved accountability. But giving her that justice meant unleashing chaos. It meant watching her father get perp-walked in handcuffs. It meant Vincent's kids losing their father. It meant the power vacuum that would follow when Sanctuary collapsed, and all the violence that would rush in to fill it. Was that justice? Or was it just revenge dressed up in righteous language? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Still deciding? It was Vincent. Of course it was. He probably had someone watching her building. Probably knew the second she'd plugged in the flash drive. Another text came through. Meet me. One more conversation. Then I'll respect whatever choice you make. She texted back. Where? Pier 39. The Carousel. 1 hour. Sofia grabbed her jacket and headed out. The city was alive with nighttime energy. Bars spilling music onto the streets, tech bros stumbling between clubs in the marina, street performers finishing their sets on Market. San Francisco in all its messy, beautiful, complicated glory. A city that had no idea how close it had come to burning. How close it still was. Vincent was waiting by the carousel, watching it spin empty circles, calliope music playing to nobody. He looked tired. More tired than before. Like the weight he'd been carrying was finally crushing him. "You came," he said when Sophia approached. "I shouldn't have," she replied. "Every minute I spend talking to you makes this harder." Vincent nodded. "That's the point. Easy choices don't require conversation. So what's it gonna be, Sophia? You gonna be the hero who exposes the truth and watches everything burn? Or you gonna be like your father and me, someone who carries the weight so others don't have to?" "Those aren't the only options," Sophia said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Yeah, they are," Vincent said flatly. "You've seen the files. You know what's at stake. There's no middle ground here. Either you pull the trigger or you don't." Sophia crossed her arms, staring at the carousel. "Vincent, be real with me for once. You didn't build Sanctuary just to protect the city. You built it to protect yourself. To stay in power." Vincent actually smiled at that. "You're right. I did. I'm not some selfless hero, Sophia. I'm a criminal who found a way to legitimize his empire by making it useful. But here's the thing, my motivations don't change the results. This city's still safer. People are still alive. And yeah, I profit from it. But so does everyone else. That's how the world actually works. Not the fairy tale version they teach in law school. The real version." "So what?" Sophia challenged. "I'm supposed to just accept that? Become part of the lie?" "No," Vincent said, his tone softening. "You're supposed to decide what matters more. Purity or survival. Because you can't have both. Your father learned that. I learned that. And now you're learning it too." Sophia felt something breaking inside her. That clean line between right and wrong she'd spent her whole life believing in was disintegrating like sand through her fingers. "If I walk away, if I bury this, I become you. I become my father." "Maybe," Vincent admitted. "Or maybe you become someone who understands that sometimes the real heroes are the ones who do the terrible math and make the impossible choices. The ones who sacrifice their own souls so everyone else can keep believing in justice." "That's not heroism," Sophia whispered. "That's damnation." Vincent met her eyes, and for the first time she saw real pain there. Real regret. "Yeah, it is. But someone's gotta do it. Question is, can you live with being that someone? Or do you need to stay clean even if it means blood in the streets?" Sophia turned away, tears finally falling. "I don't know. I don't know what to do." "Then let me make it easier," Vincent said. He pulled out his phone and showed her a video. It was surveillance footage from earlier that day. A black SUV parked outside Sophia's apartment building. 3 men inside, faces she didn't recognize. "Jalisco cartel scouts," Vincent explained. "They've been watching you since you started digging into Sanctuary. They think you're building a case. They're deciding whether you're worth eliminating." Sophia's blood went cold. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because right now my people are keeping them off you," Vincent said. "But if Sanctuary falls, if I go down, if your father goes down, those protections disappear. And you?" He paused. "You become the woman who destroyed the system that kept them out. They'll come for you first. Not out of revenge. Out of strategy. They'll make an example out of you so everyone else knows what happens when you mess with their expansion plans." Sophia felt her legs weaken. "So this is a threat? You're threatening me?" "No," Vincent said seriously. "I'm showing you the whole board. You wanted truth? This is it. You're not just deciding your father's fate or mine. You're deciding your own. And maybe that's not fair. Maybe you shouldn't have to carry this. But you opened the door, Sophia. Now you gotta decide if you're walking through it or slamming it shut." The carousel music seemed to get louder, more distorted, like reality itself was warping. Sophia looked at Vincent, really looked at him. This man who'd ordered murders. Who'd corrupted institutions. Who'd played God with people's lives. But also this man who'd stopped bombs. Who'd kept cartels out. Who'd saved her life before she even knew she was in danger. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't a hero. He was something worse. He was necessary. And in that moment, Sophia realized the forbidden secret had one more layer she hadn't seen coming. It wasn't just about what her father and Vincent had done. It was about what she was going to do. About whether she could live with becoming them. Or whether she'd destroy them and accept the consequences. Vincent's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then back at her. "I gotta go. Family dinner. Gianna's got a volleyball game tomorrow, and I promised I'd help her practice her serve." He started walking away, then stopped. "One last thing, Sophia. Your father didn't just sacrifice his integrity for you. He sacrificed his peace, his sleep, his belief in himself. Every day for 15 years he's woken up hating what he's become. But he'd do it again in a heartbeat. Because that's what love looks like when the world's on fire. It's not pretty, it's not noble, but it's real. He disappeared into the crowd, leaving Sophia alone with the carousel and her impossible choice. She walked slowly back to her car, the city lights blurring through her tears. When she got home, she sat at her desk and opened her laptop again. The email to the U.S. attorney was still in her drafts. One click. That's all it would take. One click and the dominoes would start falling. Justice would be served. The truth would come out. But so would the monsters. Her phone rang. Her father. She answered. Sophia, Eduardo's voice was barely holding together. Whatever you decide, I want you to know I'm proud of you. You're a better person than I ever was. Stronger. More principled. And if you need to turn me in to stay that way, I understand. I love you, baby girl. He hung up before she could respond. Sophia stared at the phone, then at her laptop screen, then at the flash drive still sitting on her table. She picked it up, held it for a long moment. Then she stood, walked to her kitchen and turned on the stove burner. The blue flame flickered to life. She held the flash drive over it, watching the plastic begin to melt, warping and bubbling, all that evidence turning into toxic smoke. But then she stopped, pulled it back. The edge was melted but the drive was still intact. Still functional. She could still make the choice, still be the hero, still do the right thing. She turned off the stove and sat on her kitchen floor, the ruined flash drive in her hand, sobbing. Because she finally understood the cruelest truth of all. There was no right thing. There was only survival and sacrifice. And she had to choose which one she could live with. Vincent's words echoed in her mind. Now that you know, who do you protect? The answer would define everything. The forbidden secret isn't about mob bosses or corrupt judges. It's about the moment you realize you become either one of them if it meant protecting who you love. Sophia's standing at that edge right now. And so are you if you're honest with yourself. There's a video right next to this one that opens the next layer of this secret. What Sophia decides, what her father's been hiding even from Vincent, and who actually controls Sanctuary from the shadows. If you walk away now, you'll never know who survives. But if you keep going, you might not like what you find out about yourself.